Namaskar children. Welcome to the third part of the lesson on statistics. In today's lesson, you will be learning about how to use mode as a technique to find the average or a typical value for the given data set. As far as the definition of mode goes, the mode is the most common piece of data. That is the one that appears the most. So the one keyword which you need to remember whenever the word mode comes in is the keyword most. Here I would like to take you back to the example which was given in the first lesson when we talked about the usage of statistical techniques which were prevalent in ancient history. When there was a battle between the Athenians and the Spartans, the Athenians had to estimate the height of the Spartan wall in order to cross it. The technique that they used was that 100 soldiers would start counting the number of layers of the wall at the same time. The idea was that though not all of them would arrive at the correct answer, most of them would be close to the correct estimation. This value, as estimated by most of the soldiers, is called the mode and was actually used to calculate the final height of the wall. In today's lesson, you will be looking at many examples and the context in which mode can be used as a measure of central tendency. Let's look at the first example. We need to find out the mode from the given data set. 2, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, 2, 4, 7 and 2. Since we know mode is the value which occurs the most, when we look at this data set, it is evident that 2 is a value which occurs the maximum number of times because 2 is occurring 4 times and has the maximum frequency as compared to the other data elements. So the answer over here is going to be really simple. The mode of the given set of data is equal to 2. I would like you to make a note of one very important point over here. This particular data is what is called as unimodal type of data. And why it is called unimodal is, as is evident from the word itself, if there is only one mode, the data is unimodal. So there is only one value which has the maximum frequency. Sometimes a given data set may also be bimodal, which means there are two data values which occur with the same frequency and that frequency is the highest as compared to all the other data elements. Another important point to be noted over here is if there is a data for which there are more than two modes which exist, it implies that mode may not be the best measure of central tendency for that given set of data. Let us look at another example. The table below shows the marks of a class obtained in a spelling test. Write down the mode for their marks. Do you think this is typical mark for the class? Explain your answer. The first part of the question is fairly simple. Let us understand this table. What is tabulated over here is the marks obtained and the frequency, as in the number of students who obtained those marks. So which means 2 students obtained marks 4, 6 had obtained marks 5 and so on and so forth. So in order to answer the first part, wherein we need to find out the mode, the only thing that we need to look at is we need to run down the frequency row and find out the value with the maximum frequency. As we can see, 6 is the maximum frequency in the row with the frequency values. The corresponding value of marks is what becomes the mode. So the point to be noted is the data value which corresponds to the maximum frequency is what gives us the mode. So which means the modal mark for this particular data is 5. Now to answer the second part of the question, is mode a typical mark for the class? The answer is actually going to be no. The reason is, if you have a closer look, more than half of the class actually secures marks which are more than 5, because 5 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 will actually give me a 21 as an answer. So more than half of the class has actually secured marks which are more than 5. So that is the reason why the mode over here does not represent a typical mark for the class. Alright, let's look at another similar example. The table over here shows the color of eyes of the students in a class. So which means there are 4 boys who have blue colored eyes, 5 girls having brown color eyes, and so on and so forth. So just let's have a look at the set of questions. The first question says, how many students are there in the class? Now this is not going to be difficult. All I do is add up 4 plus 8 plus 1, which tells me that there are a total of 13 boys in the class, and 8 plus 5 plus 2, which tells me that there are total 15 girls in the class. So which means I can say that the total number of students in the class is 28. So that gives me the answer to the first part of the question. It is 28. Alright, now for the second part, what is the modal eye color for the boys? Now again, we're going to run down the frequency values for the boys, and as we can see, the value which occurs the most is 8, and the corresponding data value for the maximum frequency is brown. So which means most of the boys in this class have brown colored eyes. Alright, as for the girls, again the maximum frequency is 8 and the eye color corresponding to that is blue. So we know most of the girls in this class have blue color eye. As far as the whole class is concerned, we will have to add up these values, which here gives us a 12. So I know there are a total of 12 children who have blue colored eyes, and this gives me 13, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So obviously the maximum value is 13, which means the modal eye color for the entire class is brown. Alright, so continuing with the same question. After 2 students join the class, the modal eye color for the whole class is blue. So which means it changes from being brown to blue. Which of the following is true? Alright, so there are 4 options given. Let us look at each option and we'll be able to decide as to which one is correct. Both students had green color eyes. So if both the students had green color eyes, that would make the frequency of the green color eye students to be 5, which does not make it the maximum frequency when compared with 12 and 13 as values. So which means this cannot be the correct answer. Let us look at the second option. Both the students had brown eyes. So if both the students had brown eyes, the new frequency for the number of brown-eyed students would become 13 plus 2, which is equal to a 15, in which case 15 would become the maximum value and the modal eye color would remain to be brown. It was any which ways brown and it would continue to be brown and it would not change to blue. So which means this option is also incorrect. Alright, the third one says both students had blue eyes. If both the students had blue eyes, then the new frequency would become 12 plus 2, which is equal to a 14. Now if I compare between 14, 13 and 3, obviously 14 is the maximum value and then the modal eye color would change to a blue. So which means this is the correct option. Since we've got the correct option, we probably don't need to look at the fourth option, which says you cannot tell what their eye colors would be. Alright, so third option is the correct option. Proceeding further, let's look at another example. The number of people living in 6 houses is 3, 8, 4, X, Y and Z, and the median is 7.5, the mode is 8 and the mean is 7. We need to find out the values of the 3 variables X, Y and Z. So let us start with the first piece of information. We know that the median is 7.5. Now, the first step that you ought to remember whenever you are either trying to calculate the median or trying to back calculate something because you already have the median is that the data needs to be arranged in order. So let us do that as the first step. So and it's evident that this data is not arranged in order. So my first step would be to arrange it in order, which means I shall rewrite it as 3, 4, 8, x, y, z. Now since I don't know the values of x, y and z, I'm just presuming that this is the order that it's going to be. Alright, now we go back to the fact that the median of this data is given to us as a 7.5 or a 7.5. Now over here, the number of values that we have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So we have 6 values here. So which means the median is going to be the value which corresponds to n upon 1 over 2th value or the value at that position. So which in this case will actually be 7 over 2, which means 3.5, and you know this, if it is a decimal value, it implies that the actual value of the median will be the mean between the value at the 3rd position and the value at the 4th position. Now remember, this needs to be done from the sorted data list. So if we go back to the sorted data list, the value at the 3rd position is 8 and the value at the 4th position is x. Now with 8 and x, I will not be able to get the mean as 7.5 because as per my assumption, this data is arranged in order. So this is possible only if the value of x is less than 8, which means I now need to rearrange my data and rewrite it as 3, 4, x followed by 8 and let y and z be at the same place. So I know that the median is going to be the mean of these two values. So which means the mean of these two values is a 7.5. So it is not difficult to understand that the value of x needs to be a 7 because only if the value of x is 7 are we going to get the mean of 7 and 8 as 7.5, and that then becomes the correct value of the median. Alright, let us proceed further now. We also know that the mode has a value 8. Now looking at this data set, it is possible for the mode to be 8 only if the value of 8 is repeated. So let me first rewrite this data set in the light of the fact that the value of x is 7. So this becomes 3, 4, 7, 8, y and z. Now since the value 8 needs to be repeated in order for it to become the mode of the data, the position at which it can be repeated is y because this data is arranged data. Alright, so that brings us to the second conclusion. The value of y should be 8. So that 8 occurs twice and is the mode of the given data set. So which means if I rewrite this again, 3, 4, 7, 8, 8 and z. Alright, there's a last piece of information further. The mean is 7. Now out of given all the data values, we only do not know the value of z, but we know that the mean is 7. And we also know the mean of any given data set is actually equal to the sum of all the values divided by the number of values. So this is not going to be difficult because this is a concept that you've learned in the earlier lesson also. I'm going to add up all these values and z divided by, we know that the total number of values is 6. So which means 3 plus 4, 7 plus another 7, 14 and plus 16. So which means 30 plus z over 6 will equal 7 because the mean is given to be equal to 7. So which means z will equal 6 into 7 minus 30, which is equal to 42 minus 30, which means z will equal 12. So there you are. We have the final answer for x, y and z, and that is what the question needed us to find out. Alright, so let me finally give you the rhyme for the mode. I don't want to brag. I don't want to boast. I am the mode. I am the most. Thank you very much. Do watch out for more statistical techniques in the lessons to come.